Is it working?
Yep, can can hear you beautifully, my friend. How are you?
Oh, good. I'm glad I sound beautiful. Like,
So gorgeous.
it's been a while. It's been a while since I've had that compliment.
You know, it'll be kind of hard for me to focus because
Um,
you're
yeah.
so lovely.
Um, yeah, man. You start off on your point, and we'll go from there, I guess.
Sure. So there's two different ways that we can approach it. So we can do it either via commentary around like medical literature, or we can do it via like philosophy, like what we understand to be trans, like in our own conceptualization. So we can go either way, whichever you prefer, or we can do both. I'll let you choose.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I'm not that read up on like the literature, so I guess philosophy would be the best way to go.
Sure. So, what do you define dysphoria as? How do you understand dysphoria? Like, what would like if I asked you what's dysphoria? What would you tell me?
So, like gender dysphoria
Yep.
specifically.
Yep. So if I was like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm experiencing gender dysphoria. I'm not really sure. Can you tell me what it is? How would you describe it?
Okay. I would say. Okay. Do you feel uncomfortable with your like what is it? The first and secondary sex characteristics you
Primary
have?
and secondary sex characteristics.
That's it, yeah, so primary, that's the word I was looking for. Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Um,
So primary and
yeah.
secondary sex characteristics. What if somebody experienced social dysphoria, like they were uncomfortable being called a woman, perceived as a woman, all these other things? They preferred like being categorized as like a man. Would that person fit into that definition of trans or no?
It depends why. Like, why would they feel uncomfortable with being called a woman?
What do you mean?
Do they feel like... Well, like, yeah, I would ask them why. I would say, if you're uncomfortable being called a woman, why?
Well, you could say the
Is it
same thing about physical dysphoria, though, right? Because somebody could have dysphoria around, like, trauma, for instance.
Oh my god, sorry, just on a bi note, you remind me so much of Destiny. Do you know who Destiny is?
Destiny is my fucking idol, just so you know.
You
So
sound just like him. That's so cool.
I
I
like
don't like him or dislike him. I watch him sometimes, and I like the way he debates. But you
listen.
sound just
I
like him.
literally got off on the fact that Destiny was bisexual and that there's a chance. Okay, so
I didn't even know that, man. I knew he had a girlfriend. I knew he like fucked around with other girls and stuff. But I thought they had an open thing, but I didn't know he was bi. That's
yep. So there's a chance, you know.
cool. Get in.
I'm working on it. Okay.
He's like a manlet as well, isn't he? He's like,
Yep.
like 5'5" or some shit.
He's like 5'8", but yeah.
5'8". Oh, that's okay. That's fucking tall compared to me.
I was gonna say, how tall are you?
I'm a fucking manlet. Like if anyone's a manlet, it's me. I like to say I'm 5'4", but I'm in denial. I'm 5'3".
Okay, so
Yeah.
would you say that like
Speaking of dysphoria.
yeah, would you say that like so you said that socially it would vary, right? Because somebody could experience social dysphoria for like quote unquote the wrong reasons. Like we don't have to say the wrong reasons, but for like non-trans related reasons. What about somebody who has physical dysphoria around like non-trans reasons, like maybe trauma or something?
I think that's something that they have to explore. Like, they have to explore with, I say, their friends, their family, other trans people, a therapist, like a trained therapist in that issue.
Sure,
say
but
that
like
that's-
would you say that they're not trans though because of that?
I don't think that's anyone's, like, position to say whether someone is definitely trans or not. I think that's up to them. I don't think, like, it's anyone's position to say whether someone is trans or not, apart from themselves.
Sure. So, like, I would argue from that point then that we have to, like, broaden our understanding of what it means to be trans. Because, like, if we're going to say that you have to be trans or, like, in order to be trans, you have to meet, like, this specific
Like, don't get me wrong,
criteria.
I have my own, like, personal criteria of what it takes to, like, qualify as a trans person, I suppose.
Okay, what is your personal criteria to be a trans person?
Like, definitely, like, gender dysphoria, definitely. Like,
But we just talked about how gender dysphoria isn't, like, always accurate.
well, I'd say it isn't the same, like, it's definitely subjective, it's different for every person, but it exists. And I'd say some gender dysphoria is valid and some isn't. Like, for example, I saw a post the other day about someone who said they experienced gender euphoria from painting themselves in green face paint because, oh, it helps them cosplay as a male masculine character. And I argued and I said, well, sure, it might make you feel good to dress up as male in male face paint, or not male face paint, just, you know, green face paint, that's what I meant. It might make you feel good to dress, like, put green face paint on, but it's nothing to do with gender. Like, male and female characters have been green. Like, that's nothing to do with gender. But this person associates being green with their gender, and I think that's that's where people get their fucking wires crossed, you know what I mean?
So do you just
Like-
disagree in overall with the concept of gender euphoria or no?
No. I agree with gender euphoria, but I think gender euphoria is the alleviation of gender dysphoria. That's what I think it is.
So this is where we're gonna have like a major disagreement, and maybe I can change your mind on this, because emotions don't exist in a vacuum. So would you say that like
No,
somebody,
of course not.
so
It's
you could
subjective, right?
so you could experience gender euphoria without ever feeling dysphoria, right? So you wouldn't
No,
say
I
that.
don't agree with that. No, I disagree.
But you
with
just said that you agree that feelings don't exist in a vacuum, right?
they're subjective, yes, but I.
No,
in
not
order-
subjective, not subjective. That they don't exist in a vacuum, so they don't
What do you
necessitate
mean
each
by
other.
that? You'll have
So
to
like,
clarify that.
so let's say hypothetically that you're somebody who lives in like the Sahara Desert and it's 100 fucking degrees all the time, like constantly.
Okay.
It's never dips below like a solid 80 degrees. Do you think that that person has the right to say I feel hot even though they've never experienced being cold?
Let me think about that for a second. Okay, so I'm in a desert. I don't know what it's like to be. I don't know what it's like to be cold because it's so hot all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like
how would I say-
so like it's scalding hot all the time. It never dips below like a solid 80 degrees, and you say it's hot outside.
But
Is
surely
that
if-
person wrong because they've never
I don't
experienced
know, man,
cold?
because if you live in that environment, surely like hot to us would be cold for them. Do you know what I mean? Because we adapt to our
Yeah,
environments, like as human
exactly.
beings.
Because it doesn't exist in a vacuum. Like one doesn't necessitate the other. Like you can experience
Okay,
happiness
but
without
we can
having
still
ever
define
felt
things.
sadness. Yeah, you can
Even
define
some
them.
things- Yeah.
Sure, but that doesn't mean that they can't exist separate from each other. They don't always have to be intertwined. So somebody could feel gender
I
euphoria
disagree.
without.
I think things have to be intertwined, man, because otherwise they do just exist in a vacuum. If you're not relating them to something, then things just exist on their own. You're not relating them to something else. Then what is the point of them? Like,
Well, because they're
you can say
descriptors. They're descriptors that
you
serve
can say,
utility
I
to
experience
us.
gender euphoria, and I can say, well, so what? Like, what if a cis person experiences gender euphoria?
Well, that's the
Like,
whole
what-
point, is that gender dysphoria isn't exclusive to trans people, so that can't be the defining characteristic that makes somebody trans.
Okay, it might not be exclusive to trans people, but I think it's more of an issue to trans people than it is to cis people. That's why trans people exist.
So then we'll have to change like what defines somebody being trans, because earlier we said that gender dysphoria was what made somebody trans. So if we accept that it's not exclusive to trans people, then there has to be another defining characteristic.
I wouldn't say. Okay, maybe not exclusive, but the severity of it makes it qualify, if that makes sense.
So like define
For-
severity.
so-
What severity is
Okay,
necessitated
so
to
a
be
cis
trans?
person might like, maybe a cis person, for example, likes expressing themselves really masculinely for some, like for example, right? And they get gender euphoria when they, flex and show their big old muscles and shit, and they're like, oh yeah, I feel like really, maybe they feel that. But I have a friend like that, for example. I have a cis friend like that, and I think he has some slight sort of body dysmorphia that gets confused with dysphoria, if that makes sense. Because I think he's one of these people that he wants to look as big and like masculine as possible, and it doesn't matter how big and masculine he gets, he still sees himself as being small and stuff. Like I think there is a cross between getting two different mental problems confused.
Well,
sometimes.
sure. I can give you like an example though of where. So like if you're saying that like the caliber of how somebody experiences gender dysphoria is what differentiates it between like a cis and a trans experience, but you can have cis people that pursue like both hormonal and surgical intervention to alleviate their gender dysphoria.
Who?
Cis women that have little tits, cis guys that have gynomastia, cis guys that have low testosterone. Cis guys will literally get that surgery where they break their fucking bones so they can grow like 2 inches. Like,
yeah, I watched a documentary about that recently, about the short guys like getting the surgery done and shit. It's a really good documentary. I got fucking slated on the FTMM subreddit for fucking sharing it, like for thinking it was helpful.
well, because it's like a fucking horrible procedure, and they usually use it for people with
Yeah.
like disabilities. It's because it's like it's one of those things where guys are like so fucking insecure in their height.
This
Yeah.
guy who had it, it was actually like at the end he was like, yeah, it was fucking painful, but I'm glad that I did it.
Yeah,
Like,
so
I'm
like
2
if
inches
cis
taller,
people are like
you know what I
so
mean?
like uncomfortable, like they experience dysphoria to the level where they're willing to do like painful surgical interventions in the same capacity that we are, then what's the line?
Well, what's the line for you then? I'd pass the question on to you. I'd say, what defines trans people to you then?
Gender incongruence.
What does that mean?
So gender incongruence would be like a mismatch between your identified gender and your experienced or perceived gender. So this would allow room. the fuck. This would allow room for like for euphoria, for dysphoria, whatever. Those would be the feelings that are derived from the incongruence. Like the feelings themselves are provoked by like a state of being. It wouldn't necessarily indicate that the way that you respond to that state of being is like the defining characteristic.
Ugh, it all sounds very wishy-washy and vague to me, man.
Well, I mean,
Like,
this is like the commentary
what's
from.
the point? What's the point defining like things as things if you're just gonna be so wishy-washy and vague with it that anyone can fucking like define themselves as anything?
Well, it's not
What's the
wishy-washy
point?
because we can use the
It
example
is
of.
wishy-washy, man.
Well, listen. So, like, you can do. So, we'll use the example that you used earlier, where cis people can experience gender dysphoria, but it's not as severe. Cis people don't experience.
I don't think it's dysphoria though. I don't think it's dysphoria. I think it's dysmorphia.
What do you think gender dysphoria is?
Gender dysphoria is specifically about gender. It's
Yeah.
This is the thing. Cis people don't think, oh, I've got small tits, I feel like a man.
I
Like,
mean, they
don't
do.
think
That's like
that.
that's like
No,
a.
they don't.
They
No,
definitely
don't,
do. That's like
dude.
a significant
No, they
commentary around
don't,
having
dude.
little. Listen, I
No,
was
they
a
don't.
woman with little tits. That was 100% the commentary that other people expressed towards
And now
me,
you're
and
a
I
trans
inflicted
man.
towards myself. Yeah, but
Right?
that
Yeah,
doesn't mean that
so
it's not
there
a
you go
common
then.
sentiment in
So
like
you're not a
women's
cis woman,
spaces.
You can't. No, man. You can't.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't sit there and say that's how it was for me.
I can
therefore
use
that's how it's for
use
cis
my
women,"
mom too.
because
My
you're not a
mom
cis
also
woman.
has like fucking a training bra at like fucking 50 years
Yeah,
old,
she
and
probably has dysmorphia.
no,
man.
she has dysphoria because it makes
Oh
her
my
feel like a
God.
man. That's what it is. That's what dysphoria
Why
is. It's
doesn't she- But
uncomfortability
she
in
doesn't
like
want
your
to
gender
transition, though,
expression.
right? She doesn't want to transition.
Nope, but she wants to get a boob job.
That's not. Yeah, that's not dysphoria, then, is it? That's just being uncomfortable with your body. That's wanting to change your body in the
Yeah,
gender
so-
that you're in. That's not wanting to transition gender, dude.
Gender
That's
dysphoria
completely
is
something
like
different.
gender dysphoria is literally defined as like an uncomfortability in like your gender identity.
I feel
So like if
you're trying
you're
to get people caught up in semantics, so you can catch people out and be like, oh well.
it's not
You know what I
semantical
mean?
because that's like
I
what the
think so, man.
consensus is. And I mean like if you
No,
can't
it's not the consensus. That's your opinion.
No,
dude.
that's like the
it's not
medical
consensus.
consensus. It definitely
Okay,
is.
No, it's not, man.
It is. Like,
It's
go
not.
ahead. Do you
It's
want to
not.
read? Should we read the DSM criteria? We can do it. Do you want to read
The
it together?
DSM criteria for what? Gender dysphoria?
Yeah. Do you want to read it together? We can read it together right
Go
now.
ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, hang on. Let me get out. Let me
I
get
may
out of
not
this.
necessarily agree with it.
Let me get out of
because,
this lobby. Let me
this-
get out of this
hey,
lobby.
the
Okay.
criteria, the DSM criteria has changed throughout history, and it is not the fucking be all and end all of.
Well, I mean,
mental
pick an
problems,
organization
so-
that you agree with, like a psychological organization that you agree with. Like this is the consensus.
Okay, it might be the consensus, but that doesn't mean that people can't argue with the consensus, dude.
Well,
Like,
no, obviously
The
not.
way
But
that
like,
science progresses throughout history is by
well,
people
sure,
arguing
but
with
we just tried to argue
consensus.
it without the diagnostic criteria, and you were like, well, it's it's because like cis people don't have it to the caliber that trans people do, but they do because
It's
they
not
get surgical
necessarily to the
intervention.
caliber, it's how far they're willing to go with it. This is the thing.
That's
Like,
exactly what I
if
just
certain
said.
people feel like, oh, yeah, but that's what makes us different, dude.
Oh, I just said
That's the
gender.
thing. Right, okay, so I was a girl once, yeah? Right? I might think, okay, and I might think, oh, maybe if I'm a bit skinnier, maybe if I've got nicer boobs, maybe if I've got nicer bum. Like, I tried all that shit, and I'm sure that many trans men have had this experience. They have tried everything they could to be the hottest girl they possibly could to make themselves feel good about it, and it didn't fucking work, man.
Yeah, that's
didn't
because they're
fucking
trans because they have an incongruence
Because they're
between like
trans, exactly.
yeah, because they have
That's
the
my
incongruence.
point.
Yeah, but cis people can still experience that.
Which
They
your
can
mum
still.
doesn't have. It doesn't matter if cis people experience it on some level. It's not to the same extent where it makes them transgender. That's the difference.
That's why I asked you like where the extent was, and you said like the severity of how far they're willing to go to intervene into it. That's what I asked, and that's what you said. So that's why I used the example of like the height surgery. Like cis people will go to incredible lengths surgically and medically to like affirm their
Yes,
gender.
but it's for aesthetic. It's not for gender. It's
I mean,
not
it
to
is
change
because
their gender.
they can still experience gender dysphoria.
Yeah,
So
but it's
yeah.
not to change their gender.
No, because that's
This
not
is
what
the
gender
thing, transgender
dysphoria
want
is.
to change it. They want to change it. They don't want to.
Yeah, because of an incongruence, and the dysphoria is the feeling that incongruence provokes.
I feel like you've got this really weird, like, circular logic about the whole thing, man.
I mean,
Like,
I've gone in a very straight line, but
I don't agree. I think you've got some really weird circular logic on it.
well, let's just look at.
You're
Let's just,
basically saying.
let's just look at the
Okay.
criteria. Okay, let's look at the criteria. Okay, so a marked incongruence. So a marked incongruence between one's experience and expressed gender, for at least 6 months of the duration. Blah blah blah.
Hang on,
So
what are you looking at? I'll look at it at the same
here,
time.
I'll
It
send
makes
it.
it a bit better.
I'll send it to
Okay.
you.
I'll look at it at the same time.
Patience is a virtue. Okay, it's coming. There it is. Okay.
Sorry, you'll have to bear with me. I've never used this like chat before, so I don't know where the messages coming through. Is it
you-
on Facebook Messenger?
Yeah, it should be on Facebook Messenger. Are you on your computer? Or are you on your phone?
Computer.
You should be able to like open Facebook in another window, yeah.
Yeah, I got it. Okay.
Okay. So, what is this one?
What website are we on? We're on psychiatry.org.
And psychiatry.org is published by the American Psychological Association, who writes the diagnostic and statistical manual. Yeah,
well,
so
we all know they don't know anything.
Well, the APA actually modeled this diagnostic criteria after the ICD-10, which is the manual that you use in the UK. I mean, we modeled it after your manual, so I mean, and your diagnostic criteria.
Then.
But
fair enough, I'll sit down.
So it says it specifies, so something that's important to, and I'm going to back up just a little bit before we get too far gone in this. So it says at the top here where it says a marked incongruence between one's experience and expressed gender and their assigned gender for whatever duration. So it's really important.
What are you reading, sorry?
So if you scroll down, it says criteria, gender dysphoria in adolescents and adults. It's
I'm there. Yeah. I'm there. Sorry.
Okay, and it gives that little blurb about incongruence, and so the APA, the organization that writes the DSM, has done extensive commentary on this, where they've come out and said that incongruence is the defining characteristic for what makes somebody trans.
Sorry, can we just stop, like, before we go any further? What is your argument? Like, my argument is you need dysphoria to be transgender.
My argument is that you need incongruence, and dysphoria is a feeling. Incongruence is a mismatch. So an incongruence means like something that isn't the same, right? So like it's a mismatch between somebody's experienced gender and their assigned gender at birth. So if you were born a woman and you experience your gender and identify as a man, that would be incongruent. Does that make sense?
I'm sorry, but it doesn't make sense to me. I don't see what the difference is, man.
So I'll ask you this question. Do you believe in brain sex?
Brain sex? What does that mean?
So that like your brain is male and your body is female, and you're trying to reconcile the two. Do you buy into that concept or no? Because that's a shortcut right through this.
I mean, brain sex? I don't believe in like your brain and your body being separate. Like,
well, like that. I'm just asking because that's like a common like talking point that like we have like a male brain and then our bodies are female, and so we can't magically change the chemistry of our brain, so we change our body. There's not, but a lot of people will buy into that. But that's just like a shortcut through all this.
That doesn't sound right to me.
Yeah, that's pretty unfounded. So that's okay. We can do it the long way. We can spend. Oh, no worries. We can spend more time together.
Oh, sorry. I'm just having a debate with someone online. Sorry. Sorry.
Sorry, Grandpa. Didn't mean to disturb you.
Yeah. Oh God, the boomers again. The boomers are after us now.
Okay. So you good?
Carry
Ready?
on. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Okay. So the APA, WPATH, and the ICD-10 and the World Health Organization have all come out and supported this idea that incongruence is like the defining characteristic for what makes someone trans. It's like a disconnect, and then dysphoria is the feeling that disconnect will provoke. Okay, so if we look at the criteria that's laid out to us by the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual here in the greatest country on earth, the US of A, all of these characteristics that are listed for us, only one of them will describe dysphoria, and that's going to be the first criteria, right? Because this is going to be what provokes the discomfort in your assigned and your experienced gender being incongruent. The rest of these are just kind of like, I kind of feel like I should be this way. I think that maybe I should be this way. So only one of these characteristics is like the defining characteristic that is necessitated in being trans. And that's not a required criteria to be diagnosed.
So do you not agree with this, or do you agree with this?
I agree with this, that the incongruence is like the defining characteristic, not that the dysphoria is the defining characteristic, because it's not exclusive to trans people.
So I'm still trying to like make out what your point is, like exactly. I'm sorry, like
You're totally fine. I'll try and explain it again, okay? So a gender incongruent.
Let's say that cis people can experience gender dysphoria. How does that help anyone? What do you mean? What does that prove? Like, let's say you're right. Let's say cis people experience gender dysphoria. Like, what does that like?
Then it wouldn't be what makes somebody trans, because non-trans people could have it.
But what if it's on a level of severity?
Well, we already kind of ran down the level of severity tree, though.
I know, but like, do you not still think that's a valid point? Like.
No, because I think that cis people will go to
illness, like with depression and stuff. Like some people are a little bit depressed, where it's not really a problem. Like they can still get on with their everyday lives. Some people are so depressed where they need therapy, they need to actually change, they need to actually have intervention in their lives. So their severity does matter.
Well, severity does matter because that will determine like the intensity of treatment, right? But the point being that everybody that is depressed has depression. Not everybody that has gender dysphoria is trans. So that couldn't be the defining characteristic for being trans. It would have to be something else.
But if a cis person has gender dysphoria on such a small level, why it doesn't matter? Like,
what do you mean?
That's the thing. Can you give me an example, like a cis person who would have? Like, I know you said your mum, like with her tits and stuff, but I don't. Well, I
gave like several examples. So you could have like a cis guy that has gynecomastia, right? Like man boobs, like actual like breast tissue, like having tits. That can cause him gender dysphoria because he's like experiencing discomfort with the way that his body doesn't reflect like his gender identity.
But that's normal. Whereas trans, like, I'm sorry, this is probably a really controversial statement to make, but it's not normal for, say, a bio female to grow up with tits and feel uncomfortable with her tits like a man would about having gynecomastia. That's not normal.
I mean, sure, but that's not the point. Like normalcy isn't the point, though. But that's not the point because like normalcy. But then it wouldn't be. It would. It would be super normal then because everybody would have it and it wouldn't be an issue because it's not exclusive to trans people.
But it is though when you're born a sex that you. Like, for a cis man who has, like, the man tits, like, it would be normal for him to not want man tits. Do you know what I mean? Whereas
I understand what you're saying, but it's
trans,
kind of, it's, like, irrelevant.
Trans is the fact that they have titties, and they don't want the titties, even though they should want the titties.
That's incongruence, that's not dysphoria. Dysphoria would be the negative feeling about it.
So it is a semantics debate, then, between incongruence and dysphoria. That's what we're having. Which is what Destiny loves to do all the time, by the way, is just get caught up in semantics debates instead of actually getting to the fucking
You're the
point.
one that was, like, fucking whining and crying about, like, words having meaning. And then, like, when we want to talk about then we want to talk about what the words mean, and you're like, well, it's semantical. Like, what is it? Is it semantical, or do they have meaning and it's important?
I suppose it's not so much about the words, it's the point, man. It's the principle. I suppose that's what I'm getting to. It's the principle of the matter. Like, it's the actual it's not the words themselves, it's what we're actually getting at. It's what the words represent. It's what the feelings are.
And dysphoria would be the feeling, and then, like, the incongruence would be the state of being.
Yeah, but they're so closely linked together, like, and you're trying to separate them into two different things.
Well, they're two different words, and they mean two different things, so we use them differently. Because incongruence would be like a
define dysphoria then. Define dysphoria from congruence for me, like specifically.
So incongruence would be like the mismatch. Dysphoria would be how you feel about it, and dysphoria would be like an uncomfortable or like a.
Hang on, incongruence is the mismatch, but what causes the mismatch? It's the feeling of dysphoria, right?
We don't know what causes the mismatch. We don't know.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. So
yeah, like what makes somebody gay?
The mismatch doesn't appear out of nowhere.
I mean. Of course not. That the idea is that like being trans is innate, right? Like it's an unchangeable part about ourselves that's like immutable. So where does that come from? You don't believe that? Okay, then choose to be cis.
Choose to be cis.
Do it. Like if it's mutable and you can change it.
I could. Yeah, I could live as a cis woman. I would be fucking probably a lot more miserable. But I could do it. Okay,
so we're getting confused here. Because, like, the act of transitioning itself is absolutely a choice, right? It is 100% a choice. Like, the state of being trans is not a choice, and you just described that to me because you said that you would still be miserable living as a woman. You can choose to transition, but the state of being trans isn't a choice. So where does that come from? We don't really know, but we understand that it's immutable. Being trans is experiencing.
Some people that go through the dysphoria and never transition.
It's experiencing incongruence between your assigned and experienced gender.
Let's say someone lives through let's say someone has dysphoria and they live through it their whole lives and they decide never to speak up about it or address those feelings and they live as a cis person their whole life. Are they technically transgendered? No.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think that if there's a gay person...
Who are you to say that? Who are you to say that?
Because they experience the incongruence. If
they never address it, if they never bring it up to anyone, and they live with that
that doesn't make them not trans. If somebody's a fucking white passing black person and they never tell any... If somebody's a white passing black person and they never fucking bring up that their dad's black,
White passing black person. What's that?
are they just so like somebody who has a black dad and a white
Like
mom
Sean
and they're
King?
white? Sure, like Sean King. And if he never brings up his race, is he just suddenly not black?
Sean King's a fucking forward.
Can you answer the question? Is
Sorry,
he just
yeah.
is he just suddenly not black because he never says anything about it?
He's not black. No, he's not black.
Why is he not black?
Because he's not. He has white parents.
If you have, oh my god.
If you
Okay, let me clarify. If you have a child that is born from a black father and a white mother, the child is
You're
black.
half caste.
Sure.
No, you're half caste.
Sure, you're half black. If you never say that, if you never utter it, and everybody just assumes that you're Caucasian, you're the whitest white boy ever,
I
are
don't
you
think
just
everyone
suddenly?
would. I think some people would assume you're half black. Some people would assume you're full black. Some people assume you're white. Like you.
I feel like you're being like intentionally obtuse right now.
What do you mean? I'm
So-
just arguing with you, man. Like,
No, you're like intentionally missing the point. So like if you have somebody who has this innate characteristic that's able to blend into society without
what's the innate characteristics? Sean King does not have innate black.
Oh my
characteristics.
fucking-
He has white
Okay,
skin. He has
let me-
white skin. Man.
let me
Look at him.
let me
He's
use
whiter than
let me
a
use
fucking-
let me use another example, okay? Let's use another example. Let's use a gay guy, okay? And this guy marries a woman. And all he can think about is sucking dicks. That's all he wants to do. It's all he wants in life. He just wants like
Sure,
1,000
it's like-
cocks in his throat.
You can
But he
train
never
the
s-
sheepdog
he
not to
never
love the sheep, but he still
he-
wants to, right?
exactly. Is that guy just not gay? If he never tells another soul, if he takes it to the grave, his last thoughts like flash before
How
his
would we
brain
know?
are like,
How would we know?
but does that make him not gay?
It would not cross our minds, dude. It would never cross our minds.
So that makes him not gay, even though his whole life he's been dreaming
wouldn't
about dicks
matter.
in his ass. It wouldn't matter
wouldn't
because that's an
matter.
immutable characteristic of who he is.
But dude, if he never addresses that, if he never fucking brings it up and never addresses it and he suppresses that his whole life, like
He's just not gay.
it would never bring it. No, it would never come into question.
So you think that like declaring that like who and what you are defines what you are?
No.
Well then what the fuck do you mean that somebody can like be gay but just never say it? They're just not gay suddenly.
I think people can be in denial,
That's not what I asked.
but that's kind of the point though. Like,
No, the point is that like you are still gay even if you never like utter the words I am gay and nobody knows that you're gay. You're still gay.
yeah, but why does it matter? Like, it wouldn't have any consequence.
That's like the whole thing that we're arguing is that like it's immutable, right? Like it's like a state of being
That's
to
the thing,
be gay.
right? That's what happened for thousands of years. Is people fucking it didn't like
Exactly,
like,
and they were still fucking gay, were they not?
I don't know. Were they gay if they never
Yes.
did a gay act?
Yes.
If they never.
Yes, 100%. You can still be gay. You can still be attracted to men and want to suck dicks and never do it.
It depends. I think that's where we're getting like. That's where we disagree. Is like what actually defines. Is it what you do or what you think that makes
Well,
you
like
something?
who you are is what
You know
you
what I
think.
mean?
That's like
I don't
what
know,
you are.
man. I think it's what you do. I think we disagree on that. I think it's your actions more than your thoughts.
I'm sorry, this is just really mind-boggling to me.
That's fair, man. That's fair.
I've never heard anybody argue that somebody that is gay and just because they don't say it out loud, they're not actually gay. That's actually really.
Well, what I'm saying is, how would anyone know any different?
It's not about other people. It's like about a state of being for yourself. Did you transition
though.
for?
We're
Did you
also
transition
talking-
for other people or did you transition for yourself?
I exist in a social space. and
That's
therefore
not what I
it's
asked. Did you
about-
transition for other people or did you transition for yourself? be a-
For? What do you mean for?
Like, why did you transition? Was it because you had something to prove, because you wanted people to believe that you are this way, or is it because you just were that way?
None of that. None of that.
Then why'd you transition?
So I could be happier.
Sure, so that was like for yourself. A really easy answer. I don't know why that was hard to answer. I know, yeah, it's a little uncomfortable when like the implications are like that. It's an innate.
Not
It's an
comfortable. It's
innate.
just interesting to think about. Like,
Well, it's like an innate. It's an innate state of being. So like obviously like you transition to like better yourself. All of the societal
mean,
things are
what's
just kind
the-
of like perks. No.
yeah, but that's like, no one's gay for. Like, no one comes out as gay for someone else. Like,
I mean, they absolutely could. I mean, you could have a really good friend that like pressures you into being gay if you buy into the idea of transgenders. Like, it could be for social clout, like for exposure. It could be for tons of things. There's, of course, reasons why people might say that they're gay if they're not actually gay.
Well, fucking, I don't get it myself, but anyway.
Well, it's not if you get it or not, but it's just that it happens, right? That people can do all kinds of crazy shit for attention, for clout, for whatever, right?
Yeah, well, I don't like to account for the crazy fucking people in the world. I like to account for the fucking sane people who have some common sense that can actually think about shit.
Damn, I wish one of them was in this call with me. That'd be nice.
Oh, shade.
Fuck. I just don't understand how you can argue that, like, because you proclaim something, like, because you appear to be something to the outside world, like, that determines your experience. Like, that doesn't...
I'm not saying it determines your experience. I'm just saying, like, what effect does it have?
It has an effect on yourself. Like, that's the whole point. That's why we transition, right? Is to, like, make ourselves uncomfortable.
Ourselves are such, like, it's such a personal experience that, like, how could you possibly know apart from your own self? Like, how can you speak for anyone else, like, on that level?
How can you tell if anybody has depression or not if they don't say that they're depressed? Are they actually depressed? What does it mean for them to just be depressed and suffer in silence? Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like,
But they
like,
still feel depressed, even if they didn't, like...
Exactly, and you would still feel gay if you didn't say it. And you would still feel trans, you would still feel that incongruence.
I still don't get where this, like, how this links to, like, the whole argument of, do you need dysphoria to be trans? Like, I still don't get it.
Because dysphoria is the feeling surrounding the innateness of, like, what it means to be trans. Dysphoria is the feeling that that state of being provokes. So, like, you can feel a different way about it. So, like, innately, if I have this disconnect between my experienced gender and my assigned gender, so I was born a girl and I identify as a man, and for whatever reason those two things don't match up for me, I can feel dysphoric about it, sure. I could also feel euphoric when I'm affirmed in my preferred gender, or I could feel, like, completely fucking indifferent about it and just not care. Like, the feeling provoked from it necessitates a state of being. Like, you don't just contrive feelings out of thin air. So anyone
can be trans? Like, cis people can be trans? Like,
no, that would be your argument, because your argument is that dysphoria is what makes somebody trans, but that's not exclusive to trans people. I'm arguing that there is an innate characteristic of incongruence and mismatch.
I don't agree with you, like... Alright,
we can put that aside.
Right.
We can put that aside. Like, we can just say that, like...
A strong desire for the primary or secondary sex characteristics of the other gender. A strong desire of the other gender... Wait, a strong desire to be of the other gender, a strong desire to be treated as the other gender, a strong conviction that one has the typical feelings and reactions of the other gender, a strong desire to be rid of one's primary or secondary sex characteristics because of a marked incongruence. See, this all makes sense to me. Like,
yeah,
I don't get where our disagreement is, man. I think that's the
because
problem.
Those are all things that can apply to cis people. Every single one of those criteria, except for the first one, can apply to cis people.
I mean, it can maybe from one day or two in their lives, but not a persistent fucking, like, thing.
That's... You're about to die on the dumbest fucking hill ever, okay? So, like, a strong desire to be rid of one's primary or secondary sex characteristics. Do you think that women that get hysterectomies, like, just have, like, one day where they're like, ugh, I just don't want to have a uterus anymore? Or do you think it's a persistent feeling of, like, uncomfortability and wanting to rid themselves of that primary sex characteristic?
I don't know why cis women want to get rid of their wombs. Why do they?
For a plethora of reasons. One of them is, like, a strong desire to be rid of one's primary sex characteristics. I mean, it doesn't specify in here. Because I don't want it. Why do you not want yours?
Because I'm trans.
Sure. And cis women want to get rid of theirs because they don't want to have kids, because they don't want to have a period, because they don't want to get pregnant.
But that's not nothing to do with gender.
That's because this section that we're looking at right here is talking about primary and secondary sex characteristics. That's what I'm talking about.
It's nothing to do with gender. If it's this
I'm not talking about gender, so let's read this again. So, like, a strong desire to be rid of one's...
conversation's about is
sure.
Gender.
So the first criteria here, this very first one right here, this is the defining characteristic of what makes somebody trans. Every single one of these below it can apply to cis people. Cis people can fit this definition of gender dysphoria, like this criteria.
Can they?
Yes.
Okay,
so you need
a strong desire to be treated as the other gender. That's
yes.
People can have.
Yes, misogyny, fucking patriarchy, like the way that women are treated in society. They're like, I wish that I was treated as a man. Are you serious?
The way women are treated in society. Women are treated better in society than fucking men.
Oh no, you're also an incel. Oh my god, it keeps getting worse.
An incel.
Fuck. Oh my
Oh, you're
god.
straw manning me now. You're straw manning me now. Instead of finding
Okay.
out my actual opinion, you're just going to straw man
I guess.
me.
Okay,
Yeah,
listen.
good one,
Okay,
man.
okay. Let me back up. Let me back up. Let me back up. Let me
Good
back
debate.
up. Here, I'll back up. I'll back up. Here, let me back up. Let me back up.
Okay.
I rescind that. Okay, let's back it up because
Okay.
maybe it's different in the
Yeah.
United Kingdom. Okay, maybe our
What do
ass
you
backwards. Maybe our ass backwards country in America is a little bit different. Okay, so
No, man. It's exactly the same in the USA.
Um,
At the end
so
of the day-
in the United Kingdom, is there a law where like if so like in the United States, there is a law that if a woman is raped by a man, the man has a right to custody of that child if it's birthed. Do you think that maybe
If a
women are
woman is
like
raped
slated
by
in
a
that way?
man, the man goes to prison.
Not very often, not in the United States, no sir.
Well, I don't know what fucking planet you're living on, mate, but if someone's proven to rape someone, that's against the law, and they go to jail.
You know what the conviction rate for rape is in the United States?
My God, here we go.
Well, I'm just asking because like you're like, oh, it's
No,
I
don't. I don't.
So
know the
4% of all rape
Oh,
accusations go to trial, and 1% of that 4%
That's because it's
result in
very hard
conviction.
to prove rape. It's very hard to
But
prove rape in the court of law. That's why.
Exactly. So if a woman is raped by a man and she becomes pregnant and she births
It's
that
very hard to
child,
prove. Yeah.
yeah. So if
It's
she
very hard
births
to prove
that,
she was raped.
Yep,
A woman
exact-
can easily say she was raped and when she wasn't.
totally
that's
right.
another
Women
thing.
are just liars.
Yeah.
Anyway, so if
No,
she
but
had,
it can happen. It can happen.
sure.
And it
Any-
does happen.
Anyway, so if this woman has the baby, the father can sue for custody of this baby and like be granted custody of this baby even though he's a rapist. Do you think that like maybe women are treated a little bit unequally in that situation?
No,
or-
I don't.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because easily, loads of men are taken away their rights to be fathers by women just as much in the legal system.
Well, I mean,
Women
that
can say,
wasn't.
"I want
that
to be a
wasn't
single
really-
mother,"
Wasn't really
and
what I'm
this
talking
man
about.
abused me. No, but listen, dude, you're saying that women are the ones who are oppressed in society because patriarchy, blah 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 blah.
Yep.
Right? No,
I want to tell you guys, I'm literally gonna fucking kill myself. I'm sorry. In a video game, I'm not actually going to.
Power in other situations, right? And for the most part, it is equal.
Okay, so
Right
we can
now,
do. So we can
in
do
this day
it.
and age,
So we
it's
can do it the other way then. Let's say that men are horrible. Women don't want to have sex with them, and they're like crying rape left and right all the time. Do you think that a
No,
man
I'm not
like?
even saying that, dude.
No,
That's not my
I'm
position. You're
saying.
strawmanning me again.
I'm not
You're trying to
strawmanning you.
strawman me to
I'm
make an
asking
easy
you.
argument.
I'm asking you a
It's
hypothetical
really
question.
weak, man.
I'm asking you a
Can you
hypothetical
actually
question.
argue against my
I'm
point?
asking you a hypothetical question.
Okay. go
Okay.
on. What is
So
it?
if women are superior in some aspects of society, and men are disadvantaged because women like cry rape or
Not
whatever.
superior. Not
Okay.
superior.
Oh my god! Can I just finish the sentence? So
No, you can finish a sentence if you actually get it fucking right. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Go
Okay,
for it.
okay. So just correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. In some aspects of society, women have
Yep.
advantages over men. Correct. Would you not consider that? We were talking about how a strong desire to be treated as the other gender. Maybe men are like, hey man, I'm tired of getting fucked over in family court. I have a strong desire to be a woman because women are treated better by the legal system. Do you think that that could be applicable?
That's fucking
in this-
retarded.
Do you think that that could be applicable in this situation?
Applicable? What do you mean, applicable?
So we were just talking about how in the criteria it says a strong desire to be treated as the other gender or some alternative gender
What, just
different.
because it'd be easier for you in the legal system? No, that's stupid. That's just trying to get a cop out. That's not gender dysphoria. That's you trying
We're
to
not
fucking
we're not
work
talking
stuff.
we're talking about like this one sentence. So like clear your mind. This is the only sentence in your mind right now. A strong desire to be treated
No, I'm
as
not
the other
removing
gender.
context. No, I'm not removing context of the whole conversation just so you can prove one tiny point above me. No.
Well, because you have to look at the criteria individually because that's how they would diagnose somebody with gender dysphoria. Would be they have to have two of these, so they're separate.
Dude, it's all in context. It's all in context.
It's
You
not
can
in
try and remove all
context.
context. It is. Everything
That's
is in
not-
context. If you
Not
try and
not
remove everything
diagnostic
from
criteria.
context, it's never going to work.
Well, we're
Science
talking
doesn't
about
work like that.
we're talking about diagnostic criteria, so there is no context. That's the context that we're using, and so the context would be that each of these are a specific
That's
criteria.
stupid, though. Any
that are distinct from
psychologist
each
will
other.
tell you that they're not going to fucking look at diagnostic criteria without context.
Can I please ask where you got your degree in psychology? Because I can tell you where I got mine.
Okay, well, I did 1 year of my undergrad, and I dropped out because I had a mental breakdown.
That's
But I'm
crazy
planning on
because
going
I actually have
I
my
got
degree
really good grades.
and I work in the mental health field. That's crazy. That's super weird that you know more than me. though.
Great, man. But I've met plenty of people in the mental health field who are fucking ignorant as fuck to mental health, so that means nothing to me.
Well,
But
I guess,
No.
I suppose. So anyway, so if we're looking at these individual criterias, if we're just going to look at the one where we're going to say a strong desire to be treated as the other gender, do you not think conceptually that a cis person could experience
depends why.
that?
Depends why. It depends why. I would ask them why.
And is there a wrong
The
answer to
why is
that?
very important. Yeah, there is.
What's the wrong answer
If
and
it's
what's the right
because you
answer?
want to get through, because if it's for example, the reason you gave, I think I'm going to get a better deal in this legal procedure.
Hmm.
That's not fucking valid. That's not valid.
Is that not why we do it to some extent, though?
No, it's not at all.
You don't think
And
so?
if it is, then you're no. If it is, then
You
you're
don't think
fucking
that
wrong.
like societal aspects of gender dysphoria are relevant at all? Like, why would
And
it be a
what? So
criteria
you
then?
think you think you'll have an easier life if you transition, like to be
Some
the other
people, yeah. I mean, yeah. So like, if you're, so
No,
like,
that's
think of it.
stupid.
Well,
That's
think of it
stupid.
this way: if you live in a society like, I don't know, let's pick a random country. Let's say you live in like Saudi Arabia.
No, 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 no,
You
no.
would, and
We can't
you,
go to other countries. Let's
I
stick
mean,
to
we
the
could
West, man, because Saudi
stick to the.
Arabia, man.
Okay, okay.
If
Well,
you're
we'll
going to
stick to the
Saudi
West.
Arabia, that's
Okay, this is
Muslim
great.
shit, and that's
How
fucking
are you familiar at
yeah.
all, like, with the demographics of the United States? Like, what areas are like really like conservative and like kind of ass backwards and like progressive? Do you understand how the country's like kind of split up in the United States?
I just know it's like relatively 50-50 between like Republicans and Democrats. That's all I know.
Sure.
Like,
So there's an area in the United States called the Bible Belt, and it's a string of southern states which are like predominantly like overwhelmingly Christian, white, like have a long history of like opposing progressive movements and shit like that or whatever. So if you're a woman who's in
yeah.
this area, and you know everybody there is like, hey, women make babies, women make dinner, and women are my fuck slave. That's
Okay,
what women are.
I get where you're going with this. I
Yeah.
can get where you're
Yeah.
going with this. That's a
Yeah.
tactical move. That's not gender dysphoria. That's tactical. That's not gender dysphoria. That's a tactical move.
No, so we were talking about whether or not like you could transition to like elevate yourself in a specific society. That's what we were talking about. Do you not think that hypothetically that
Yeah,
person could do
that's
that?
tactical. That's a tactical move. That's not fucking. That's not because of gender dysphoria.
I'm
It's the why that I'm interested in.
so I'm trying to contextualize it because earlier you said that it was inconceivable that a cis person could do this, and that's why it's a criterion. So I'm trying to explain to you that like these criteria are both applicable to trans people and cis people, and that's why like dysphoria as a concept is like
Okay,
a
it may
bad
be
metric.
applicable if you broaden it that much. Yeah,
I
but
mean,
I'm not broadening it that much. I'm keeping it very concise and very specific because
even
that's
if
how it's relevant. That's how we keep things relevant. Is within context,
that was pretty,
precisely,
I feel like that was
precisely.
pretty specific.
Yeah, it's a specific case, but it's broadening it. It's broadening the definition so much.
That's pretty common though, like even historically, like
Really?
up until like
Historically, maybe. I'm talking about
historically
now,
and
man.
contemporarily,
Yeah,
like
I don't care about
yeah,
historically, man. I
yeah.
don't care. I'm talking
I
about
said
now, like in the
historically,
West now.
historically and
Sorry.
contemporarily. So if I could finish
Yeah.
my sentence, so historically and contemporarily, you have like the issue of like women feeling slated, whether you think it's true or not, by society, like feeling like, wow, I wish that I was treated like a man so I could feel like comfortable, like maybe I wouldn't get catcalled at night, maybe you know
That's
I
not
wouldn't have to work.
dysphoria. That's not dysphoria, man.
We're talking about the strong, so we'll refresh, Garrity. We're refreshing. So a strong desire to be of the other gender. This is also applicable to cis people.
Oh my god. What is your point, man? Like,
My
what
point
your
is that
point?
like
Cis
this, like
people can have gender dysphoria, therefore gender dysphoria does not try to define trans people. What does define trans people then? Just wanting to be the other gender for whatever fucking reason you want?
so
Like, that makes you trans?
I can say it again, and maybe this time you can like write it down somewhere. So like if you have this question again, you can refer to it. It's an incongruence between your assigned and experienced gender.
Incongruence?
Mm-hmm.
And I would ask, why? Why do you feel like, you need to investigate that. You can't just say incongruence and leave it at that. You need to investigate further. And if you don't investigate further, then you don't really care.
I mean, I would consider like being trans immutable in like a state of being, and I would assume that most trans people would
State
feel
of
that way
being.
as well. Yeah, because like it's how you are. It's unchangeable,
New
right?
age shit that.
What?
It's new age shit that.
Well, no, I'm just saying it's like immutable. It's like how you are, right? Like otherwise we would just be cis, right? Like it's who we are.
And you
It's
could. That's what I'm arguing. I'm saying you could. You'd just be probably a bit unhappier.
Yeah, so the unhappiness in identifying in a way that doesn't like align with your experienced gender would be like that incongruence. The unhappiness would like indicate that it's a part of who you are, right? Like if it's unchangeable and if living a different way makes you uncomfortable, that would indicate that it's like who you are, right?
Okay. Well, let's say like the cis person with gender incongruence gets a partner right, that changes their whole perspective. Like, let's say they had gender incongruence, but then they got with someone and they were like, oh, your tits, you're like the most beautiful feminine woman in the world, like your tits are fucking massive and your ass is massive, and like, oh, and let's say that alleviates their gender incongruence, right? How was their gender incongruence really that fucking valid in the first place?
Well, so like, no, because you're describing dysphoria, but what I'm arguing is that dysphoria is a feeling
You're
that
such a
comes from a state of
semantic
being. Because they're two different words and they have two different meanings. And if we accept dysphoria as like the criteria, that means that it's changeable, right? Like, or do you think that you can just change out of being
It's not
trans?
always changeable. There's plenty of trans people that can't fucking transition.
It's not about transition. I'm talking about like being, because like, would you consider yourself trans before you transitioned?
Being. What does that mean?
Like
Being.
it's like who you are. So like, would you consider yourself trans before you transitioned, or do you think that when you
If I
started
couldn't
transitioning,
transition, then no, it wouldn't be part of who I am. If I was in a fucking country or a state or a timeline,
you wouldn't
where I
still
couldn't
feel like you
transition,
should be a man.
no,
You wouldn't have that uncomfortability
like,
around being
I
a
want-
woman.
no, I'd be like, I want to be a man, but I can't.
Yeah, so that's
So
the
I have to deal with
incongruence.
it.
That's the unchangeable part. That's like who you are as a person. It's like part of you.
Oh man, you really just go around in circles. You just go around in circles. You don't make any point.
I've been making pretty clear and concise points, and I've gone in a very straight line. But for some reason, you keep
Not from where I'm
conflating the
sitting.
two. You said that you were
Not from where
recording
I'm
this,
sitting.
right?
No, I couldn't figure it out. I'm too dumb.
Oh, well, I can send this to you if you want, and you can watch it later and try and follow along, okay, if you want to.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man. I'd love
Right.
to.
Is
Is it on Twitch or YouTube or what?
I have it on Twitch right now, but I'm going to put it on YouTube later tonight, if my internet will allow. But,
Oh, cool. If you could send me a YouTube link, that'd be better.
yeah, absolutely. You should be able to download it. I can also email it to you, too, if you want. I don't know if it'll attach, because it'll probably be a large file, but...
Okay,
but
cool.
But I'm really curious about this, because I just kind of want to ask a couple of questions, if that's okay, about the gay thing again, if you don't mind, if you have
The gay
time.
thing?
Yeah, how we talked about like that you're being gay doesn't matter unless you like say that you're gay.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't say that it doesn't matter. It's just like, who would know? Like, how would it have any effect on anyone?
So
Like, if you never did anything about it.
so hang on, I wanna write this down because I really want to try and understand what you're getting at here. Like I really want to understand. Okay, I'm trying really hard.
I
So
get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Like, you can, like the sheep. You can train the sheepdog to not attack the sheep, but it still wants to. Like, you know what I mean? You're not going to change people's nature. Like,
hang
I
on.
think that's.
Can you give me 1 second, please? Just 1 second.
Yeah. Sorry.
Hey, babe, can you text Len and tell him to get on Twitch, and I'll join his party later? Sorry. Okay, so you said that... Okay, so can you rephrase what you just said, or say it again? Because you said that, like, being gay, like... I don't want to, like, misquote you, but you said, like, why would it matter? Because nobody else knows, right?
I just mean, like, it's a social, it's a social, it's a social thing identifying as something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure, but so...
If it
okay,
has no social context, then what's the point of it? If you never act on it, if you never do anything about it, yeah, you might know that you're gay personally, but how would it have any effect on anything? And how would, like, you know what I mean?
Sure. So, okay, so being gay, it's a social thing. There's no social context if you don't say it. What's the point? There's no action. You know if you're gay, but how does it have an effect on anything? So we'll jump across the aisle a little bit. So if somebody's depressed, but they never talk about it, they never express it in any way, what does that mean? Like, it doesn't have a societal effect
I mean,
on
being
anything.
depressed and being gay is a bit different, though, isn't it? Like, one's a mental illness and one's a sexuality. Like,
Okay, sure. I can use. We'll just stay on the gay example then. So, like, would you say that if because somebody like they for whatever reason they live their whole life and they never say I'm gay, they never engage in homosexual acts, but they still have like an attraction towards the same gender, regardless of whether or not they act on it, would you say that person was gay?
Sorry, man. Repeat that. You went really fast.
So somebody who doesn't engage in homosexual acts, and someone
Yep.
who never says I'm gay or like enters a same gender relationship, but they have same gender attraction and they have like homosexual fantasies or like they have a desire to be in a gay
Are they
relationship.
gay?
Yes.
Are they
Is that person gay?
They might be. That's the thing. They might be. You don't know. No one will know except that person.
But you would say they would still be gay, right?
I don't know. How would anyone know?
Okay, we're omnipotent beings, and we can see into the soul of every
No, we're
person.
not though. We're not though, dude.
Pretend we are for a second.
No,
is
man,
that
I can't.
is that person still gay?
That goes. I don't know.
The answer would be
How would you
yes.
know?
The answer would be yes
How
because
would you know? How would
because
you know?
it's a part of who they are, right? Like, because we understand sexuality
Who's
to be
that to say? Who's that to say apart from them?
literally everyone, because that's what being gay is, right?
But how would you know? This is my point. Like, it's a social thing.
So
It's a
this
social standing.
okay,
You know
so
what I mean?
okay, so we'll do this one then.
It's
Okay,
like saying, like,
we'll do this one then.
I don't know.
So
maybe
you're
like use the example of like maybe someone's a fucking Nazi or something.
okay.
Like, you know, I don't know. You know, like how would you know?
I
Like,
wouldn't
let's
use
say
that
someone's
because a
Nazi.
political affiliation is like a choice. I'm trying to use things that are like unchangeable about somebody, like something that is just how you are. So we could use like left-handedness, we could use race, we could use
Race
national
is a good
origin.
one.
Okay, so
Yes.
race.
Oh no,
So
because you can see race.
not always. So you can have people that are like that
Mm.
have albinism. You can have people that are mixed race that pass as like one race when they're actually the other. This happens like most commonly with like Hispanic and Latino people, where they can basically be fucking white. A great example of this, you're gonna love this. Guess who I'm gonna use? I'm gonna use Destiny. Destiny's Cuban. Destiny is Hispanic,
Is it?
but he's white. He's white. His name is Steven. His name is fucking Steven. He's white, but he is Hispanic. So because even up till like right now, you didn't know that he was Hispanic. Is he just not Hispanic because you weren't aware of it?
Hmm. No, I guess to me it'd be white.
So your perception of people will determine like what they are.
I think not just my perception, just general perception, like the majority perception matters.
So if you lived in a society of TERFs, every single person around you is a TERF. You're the one lone tran. You're the only one, and everybody's like, "Nope, you're a woman. Sorry, we don't care that you have a beard. We don't care that you have a dick."
Exist? Why would that exist? Like,
It's a hypothetical.
I know,
it's
but what's the hypothetical based on?
the hypothetical is like, would you still be trans? Like, would you still be a man if you lived in a society where like your identity wasn't
I don't
perceived?
know, man, because the turfs might have convinced me otherwise. You know what I mean? Like, this is the thing with hypotheticals like this. It's like you can't say for sure anything within that context because you haven't lived it.
So what if there's a stealth trans person and they move to like a new city and everybody thinks that they're cis and they never say that they're trans and they die with all their friends and doctors and colleagues and whatever thinking that they're cis?
Okay.
Is that person cis?
As far as everyone else is concerned, again, it's maybe, isn't it? It's that quite. It's maybe.
So all of all of the weight is
no
going
yes
to
or
be
no, man. It's maybe.
So all of the weight from this is going to come from how people perceive you.
A lot of it does, unfortunately. We live in a social world, and yeah, unfortunately, a lot of it does come down to that.
Interesting. It's a really interesting. Very interesting. So if we go to the turf example, because you know yourself and you're in this turf environment, does that their perception of you just determine like your identity?
I don't know because I don't know how I'd react to a turf environment. If I was in a turf environment, maybe they would convince me that no, I'm not a man. That
So
you know?
so what you're saying is that your own
could-
gender identity is like subjective based on your experiences. You would consider that to be true for yourself.
Yes.
Then I would call you a transgender because you're doing it for societal reasons.
Sure, okay.
Cool. Good talk, Trender. Oh man.
I don't feel like I am, but
I mean, if you think that you
that's-
can be talked out of your identity depending on the situation that you're in,
I think
would
anyone
definitely...
can be, man. I think
No,
think a
there
lot
are
of
things
people-
that are innate about you. Otherwise, conversion therapy
Nah,
would
man.
work, dude. There wouldn't be any fucking gay people in the world, and there sure as shit wouldn't be any trans people because
sexuality's
it's
different. Sexuality's
No,
different.
it's not. They're both pretty innate. They're both intrinsic, unchangeable parts
disagree
about
there.
yourself.
That's debatable.
That's not debatable. Otherwise,
debatable,
conversion
man.
therapy would work. People don't choose to be gay.
No. Sexuality is different than gender identity.
Yeah, you don't choose your gender identity either.
Well, that's debatable.
I mean, unless you're saying that you chose yours, in which case, I mean, like, that's pretty cringe.
I'm not saying I didn't choose mine, but mine was definitely shaped by my experiences, my environment.
It can be shaped,
And
but that underlying feeling that we talked about earlier would always
conscious
be
and
there.
unconscious things. We don't
Yeah.
know what causes sexuality. We don't know what causes transgenderism yet. When we
Yeah,
find
exactly.
out,
But we accept one
know
as a
what
date,
causes
and we
something.
accept the other as you
We
consider
don't.
them.
Not everyone does. Not everyone does.
But it is. It's like an unchangeable part of who you are. Otherwise, you could change
Based on
it,
what?
right?
What's
Based on gay people being thrown
there
off
are
of
transgender
roofs,
people.
based on
There
gay
are
people
transgender,
being in
and they
like concentration
How do you
camps,
explain detransitioners then? How do you explain detransitioners?
because they didn't have incongruence. They
Who are you to say
transition.
that?
They
Who are you to
transit.
say that?
The person who understands
So
like
you're
what it means
judging
to be
them?
trans. Yeah,
Do they not know?
yeah.
Do you
And
know what I mean? You're tripping over yourself here. You're tripping over yourself with your own logic.
I
when you,
haven't
like,
I
consider
haven't tripped over
detransition.
myself at all. Like detransition people
You
don't
have.
experience
You have, man.
incongruence, and if they do,
Who are
transition
you to
isn't
say
right for
that,
everybody.
man?
Because to be trans, you have to have a defining characteristic to be trans. Who are you to say that somebody who doesn't have dysphoria isn't trans?
But I thought cis people could have dysphoria.
They can. I'm using your logic. You said that dysphoria is required to be trans. How do you know if somebody has dysphoria?
That's on them. That's up to them.
So then why do you
They'll
care?
tell me. I'll ask them why, and then they'll explain it to me. And then I'll be
Yeah,
like,
but then
okay,
you
yeah.
still don't really know
Yeah.
because it's a subjective experience, so you would never know.
I mean, I don't know for sure because I'm not inside their head, but I will go off of what they're telling me. And if
Sure.
someone
And
tells
so if somebody says I'm dysphoric and you don't believe that they're dysphoric, then who are you to say otherwise?
I would be like, okay, you're dysphoric. How are you dysphoric? What is your dysphoria?
And they'd explain it to you, and you're suddenly the arbiter of if that's true or not. Do you see how like you hold me to like the standard where like how can you peer into the soul of like every single person and know if they're actually trans or have this incongruence or not? But
We're
you
both
think
doing
that
the same thing, dude. We're both
no,
doing
because
that.
because there's a defining characteristic that makes somebody trans. Because being trans is an immutable characteristic to somebody. It's like who they are. You think it's like an experience of like a feeling about how you might feel about something, but if they never say it, then it doesn't really count because of the way that society interprets it and all this other stuff.
It's everything. It's personal. It's societal. It is a mixture of everything. It's not one thing.
It's really weird to me because you're giving me like the too cute argument right now. I feel like we've switched positions because you're basically arguing that it is subjective and it's a choice and it's mutable.
Yeah, but there's still a level to that. There's still a level I'll accept and a level I won't.
So, but again, like, who are you to be the arbiter? Like, you were just like hounding me, saying that I can't peer into the soul of every person because I'm not like the king of gender, but like you are.
I'm going off of what they're doing and what they're saying. If someone detransitions, right, that says to me they thought they were trans, okay, based on these symptoms, and then later on, they obviously came to terms with them being wrong.
That doesn't counter anything that I said, though, because I would say the same thing, that they were wrong about having
It's
an
not by me
incongruence.
peering. It's not by me peering into their souls or what they say. It's based on their actions. It's based on what they're doing.
And you can still do that with incongruence. Like, you can look at somebody who's trans or says that they're trans, and you can explain away all of these feelings and experiences by incongruence without using something that's arbitrary like dysphoria and not exclusive to trans people.
So, what does define trans people then for you?
Incongruence between assigned
not
and
dysphoria,
expressed gender. No, because dysphoria would be how you feel about the incongruence. I don't really care what makes people feel things. I care about like I care about what makes the person feel something. I don't care what the feeling is.
How do you know what makes someone feel something? Surely that's like...
Well, because every feeling comes from a state of being. Like, every single feeling will come from a state of existence. Because when you're
Those are very
hungry,
wishy-washy, like...
when you're hungry, you feel hungry. It's because you haven't eaten. When you feel sad, it's because a sad event has occurred. Like, all of these feelings come from contextual, like, experiences and, like, a state of being. Like, I am sad because something sad happened. I am tired because I did not sleep. I am hungry because I did not eat. All of these things come from a state of being. They don't just, like, come out of thin air.
It's gender euphoria, like when you eat something and you feel more full.
Sure. I mean, well, gender euphoria would be like the affirmation. So, like, if I have this incongruence, right, like I'm born a woman, but I feel like maybe I'm a man. Like, I'm not sure that, like, I am a woman, but I don't really know. And somebody calls me sir, and I'm like, oh, shit, that feels really good. That would be, like, euphoria.
See, I never that's the weird thing. Like, I never, like, had that thing of, like, wanting to be called certain pronouns. Like, that. I suppose that makes me weird from a lot of trans people. For me,
Well, I
it
mean,
was much
considering
more-
that you put all of your eggs in, like, the how society perceives you basket, I would say that's pretty weird, yeah.
Yeah, it is. Like don't get me wrong. Like,
Fucker.
what is up? What's going on?
I'm playing Call of Duty. You're fine. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like, I don't know. I guess that makes me weird, but it's much more about appearance and like, yeah, like look how I'm perceived rather than how I'm addressed. If that makes sense. Because someone can
but
come
how
and be
you're
like, you're right, cunt. Like, you know, they can address me that way. Like,
but how you're perceived will like
cunt.
dictate how you're addressed. Because if somebody perceived you as a woman, they would call you ma'am.
Well, it's strange because like I'm around people who knew me pre-transition, and even though I pass as like male now, like they'll still refer to me like as female pronouns because they knew me when I was little and they don't know about the transition. So
Sure,
it's
but
like,
that's going to be different than like people's perception of you because that's what people know of you. That's not their perception of you. That's like how they know you.
that's still a perception. Like,
Not really.
how someone knows you is still a perception.
Not really, because if somebody knew me before I
There's
transitioned,
different
they would
levels
know.
of perception. There's like instant, like, okay, I'm looking at you, that's my perception. Then there's perceptions like, this is my memories of you. Like,
Well,
there's different
no,
levels
because
of
a memory would be like how you are, right? Like that's how somebody understands you to be. That's different than a perception. A perception is like how somebody views you, not like what you are.
perception. Who really knows what you are, man?
I mean,
you know what I mean?
we
It all goes
do.
Really it all goes very deep, doesn't it?
I mean, I guess. Well, we could even use something like a mental illness, like because you would consider dysphoria to be like a condition, right? So like if somebody's depressed but they don't act depressed, is that person really depressed?
If they're depressed but they don't act depressed.
So they don't like, you know, lay in bed and cry or whatever. Like they're like the friend that like has depression but nobody
Depression
knows.
is like different for everyone.
Just look at Robin Williams. Was he really depressed? He was a happy guy, and he's still
Oh,
committed
no,
and
man, we
unalive.
don't understand depression, do we? We still don't understand. That's the thing, like,
I mean,
still
we
don't
do because you
understand
can like actually view it on like a it affects the neurochemistry of your brain. Like we can, but we don't do that for everybody that has depression. We do that for like clinical trials. But everybody that goes to a psychiatrist who's like, I'm depressed, we don't like give them a brain scan. We just treat it anyway.
I don't know,
right?
man. I think some people like not necessarily have like chemical depression, but I think some people have like philosophical depression where they just decide like life like isn't worth living. Like,
But
you know what I
we
mean?
wouldn't.
That's a whole different fucking level. But you know,
Well, listen,
we don't need
Eric.
to go there.
This has been so much fun. I've enjoyed listening to your
Yeah,
angelic
dude.
voice.
Honestly.
Always a good time. I'll let you know. I'll drop you a link when I upload this, and you can get out your whiteboard and your crayons, and you can try and follow along next time. Okay?
All right, I'll just say, man, like, thanks for letting me be part of the group. I like the group. Like, I've left all the fucking tranny groups so far, and FTM, no rules, and FTM UK is the only one I'm part of now. So
Well, keep it up, and I'll ban you. Okay? So
you banned me.
I'm just kidding. I'm just giving you a hard time. Okay?
Sorry, I'm autistic. I don't understand jokes sometimes.
That's all right. Society's hard. Okay?
Innit?
All right. Well, you listen. You take care, and if you ever want to try, if you hear this and you're like, hey, I missed that or I didn't follow along, you just let me know and we can try again. Okay? I'm here to guide you.
All right, dude. Like, it's just a shame. Like, I still don't understand where our disagreement is. Maybe like you could do a write up or something on the link, or if you can be asked, or you know, whatever. Yeah.
No worries. Okay? Well, if you feel the need to, we can definitely talk about it again. Okay?
All right. Cool.
All right, man.
Yeah. Cheers.
Take care. Okay?
Yeah. You too. All right. Bye.
What the fuck? Okay.